All right. We should technically be live. Let's see, on YouTube. We're also live on Locals. And we are live on Rumble. And I'm hearing myself. And for the first time ever, just as an experiment, we are live on X.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yep. Or Twitter. It's like, why not? We'll give it a shot, see how it goes live. Maybe a few people discovering. Come on by.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. What do we have today, Hunley? What's going on? I just got here. What's going on, Hunley?
Okay, what we have going on is I have dug out and put up more pictures than I ever have for any episode in the world. This has got to be more than one. There's just too much here.
I don't know. It's a lot of stuff. I gotta give you that, Hunley. The thumbnail doesn't cover it, but it can't, because all of these groups that we're going to cover are interrelated. There's a web, and they're not separate. I used to think they were separate, and many historians thought they were separate, and I was one of them. I'm not that. I don't believe that any longer because of evidence that's come to my attention about the interconnectivity of these different groups and how they taught each other how to make bombs and everything else. I was unaware of that. And, that movie that you're showing there is near the end. That's a movie by Emile D'Antonio, director, and the legendary Haskell Wexler as the cinematographer, and Mary Harron, who would later go on to direct American Psycho and tons of other movies, and was the partner to my roommate Legs McNeil. They co-founded Punk magazine. Very strange bedfellows here for all of us. Haskell Wexler, one of the most legendary cinematographers in Hollywood. Probably seen a bunch of his films just as a cinematographer. Bound for Glory, Made One, Medium Cool. I think Coming Home with John Voight, and he won an Academy Award for one of these movies. I'm not sure which one. Heat of the Night, Roan Inish. Anyway, the project you're seeing is the Weather Underground, right there. That's their logo. Goes underground after these bombings in New York in 1970 in May. The bomb explodes as they're making it on West 11th Street in a townhouse that is owned by one of the bomb makers' fathers. And so this is a very wealthy, that's the townhouse on West 11th Street. In the basement, Ted Gold, Terry Robbins, and Diana Oughton were making bombs. And the bombs they were making were not nice bombs. This is the three of them: Terry Robbins, Ted Gold, whose thumb they found, the only thing they found of Ted Gold on the right, Columbia University, and I don't know where Terry Robbins went to school. I think Gold was a mathematics major at Columbia. These are all
to Kent State.
Okay, so they're all blown to smithereens, and this has been romanticized by the Weathermen and the Weather Underground for many years. The bombs they were making were compressed with hundreds and hundreds of nails, and they were taking them to a young person's dance at Fort Dix of military recruits who were going to be dancing with their girlfriends across the river in Fort Dix, and would have been shredded into a billion pieces by the bombs that these people were making in that basement. The people that escaped, there were two girls that escaped, Kathy Bodine and the other Kathy, who crawled out of the basement, Wilkerson. And Wilkerson's father owned the townhouse. That's Kathy Wilkerson on the left, Kathy Bodine on the right. Kathy Bodine comes from the famous, this is also some Bryn Mawr and private schools and everything. Her father was the famous Marxist lawyer named Boudin, and her brother was Michael Boudin, who became a U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals judge, U.S. Court of Appeals judge, and Lewis was her great uncle, who was a Marxist mathematician. I.F. Stone, the famous historian, was her uncle, who was, we learned in the last episode, a communist spy for the KGB. So Leonard Bowden, her father was the lawyer for Daniel Ellsberg, of all people, and personal lawyer for Castro in Cuba, if you could make this up. I guess Castro might have been suing the United States at one point. Also for Paul Robeson, the black opera singer, communist, and many others, the Daniel Berrigan, whatever. So the entire family of the Bowden line, going back to the great-great-grandfather, are communists, as is she. She happens to be a communist bomb maker, however, Kathy Bowden. Her and Kathy Wilkerson, who were in the building, crawl out of the rubble stark naked because their clothes were blown off in the fire of the bomb. They come out, two pretty hot chicks, come out onto West 11th Street, stark naked in the rubble. And a woman across the street takes them in to her house, and they have burns on their bodies. And she says, I'm going to have to take you to the hospital. They don't want to go to the hospital. So to be nice, they rob the woman and they rob her pocketbook, get some subway tokens and some money, get on the subway, the IRT, with the clothing that they got. And they retreat to Kathy Bowden's family townhouse deeper in Greenwich Village.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these folks were rich too.
That's what I've been saying.
Big money. Well, it's ironic when you have a Bill Ayers who states kill all the rich people.
Well, it gets better than that, because they're going to hook up with a chick named Bernadine Dorhn. Mm-hmm. Once Bernadine Dorn's from Illinois, they haven't run into her yet, and Jeff Jones and Bernadine Dorhn are going to become lovers. And then you've got the famous Mark Rudd, who led the demonstrations at Columbia University, and then you've got Bill Ayers. Bill Ayers will later, this is Mark Rudd at Columbia. These were the best and the brightest folks. These were not slouches. These were Ivy League's best and brightest students. This is Rudd at Columbia.
He looks like Milo in this shot, doesn't he?
I don't know about that. But Rudd was world famous for this demonstration at Columbia. It was in every paper in the world. He became a rock star, Mark Rudd. He was probably the most famous of the members of the Weathermen, was Mark Rudd. And Rudd was later, I believe, voted out by them because he didn't want to be as violent as the rest of them. But when Bowden and Wilkerson flee the townhouse, various news services, including every single one in New York, shows up with the fire department. Ironically enough, a rookie cop runs headlong into the explosion and tries to rescue them. This is a group that wanted to kill the pigs and repeatedly said that. The first guy who ran into that was a first responder, a New York City cop who was on the beat, a young kid. He wasn't injured by this, but just to show you the heroism of the fire department that showed up immediately and they brought in a backhoe to dig out the basement, because the bomb was made in the basement and all the floors collapsed. Kathy Wilkerson was ironing on the third floor. Bowden was on the second floor. The whole thing pancaked down into the basement. And next door, the building was damaged, where a guy's desk in his office went through the floor into the basement. And that guy's name was Dustin Hoffman, the famous actor. And here's a shot of Dustin Hoffman also in the rubble outside. There's some shots of him going into his own building and taking his Picassos out, running like an animal, trying to save his painting collection from going up in flames. You got to take care of what you got to take care of, Dustin.
It was a tough day for Dustin.
It was a tough day. He had to rescue his paintings. Yeah, there he is. That's a great shot of Dustin. This is around Graduate time. When I say The Graduate, I mean the movie The Graduate, Mike Nichols. And he was probably the most famous actor at that time because of The Graduate and the awards. it was getting. He obviously bought a townhouse on West 11th, which is a pretty expensive street. I used to go to school down on the corner at a place called the New School for Social Research on that corner, where the school still is today. Anyway, so these people hook up together. They go underground officially. And in some of our episodes, it's going to tie together. And I'll tell you why. The Abby Hoffman episode is one, because when Abby goes underground, he hooks up with these people and they reject him from their underground network because he is a big mouth and very funny and a clown, and they don't want any part of Abby Hoffman, which is really a delineation in the movement, because there are people like myself who were more like yippies than these bomb-throwing maniacs who had no sense of humor. I mean, a yippie was someone like Abby who did media pranks and had a sense of humor, for Christ's sakes. And these people were avowed communist Trotskyite maniacs. So there's a big difference between the Abby Hoffmans and the Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorhns. My favorite quote by Bernadine Dorhn, just to know, so you know who these people are, because they have tried to romanticize their own existence for years. Part of what Eric was showing there in that movie is their demands were that their faces not be shown, and they put a screen over them so they could not be filmed. And they the five of them sit there on a couch being filmed by Emilio D'Antonio and Haskell Wexler, and they start to espouse their revolutionary beliefs. Well, the movie goes along for like 10 minutes before Antonio and Mary Harron, to their credit, realize this movie's going nowhere. And they just go, can you talk more normally like a regular people? And they said they can't do it. And Jeff Jones says, I'm very uncomfortable with this format. And Mary Harron says, you demanded this format, bro. What do you want from us? So they can't, they run out of jargon. And Jeff Jones says, if you turn off the cameras, we can have a normal conversation like people. So Mary Harron says, we're making a movie here, bro. We can't turn off the cameras. And it's basically an audio movie with nothing to see. It's so funny. At one point, Jeff Jones in that movie says, I think you saw my face, the side of my face, and he panics, right?
They identify themselves, though. It makes no
sense. Not only do they identify themselves, their photos are in every post office in the United States of America.
I know. That's what I put up, by the way, on the intro to cover it and maybe help keep it up. But right. Yeah, I put the FBI wanted for
it's so asinine. It's totally asinine. They're hoping to get new recruits. The reason that the Weather Underground goes underground is because they have no recruits. During the days of rage in 1968 in Chicago, they ran into, and they did this in Pittsburgh too, in Chicago, they went into high schools and they ran into classrooms saying they were freed. They didn't have to stay there anymore. They were liberating the classrooms. And they believed that working class kids would back them up 100%. And they would be the next communists who would come into the streets with them. Well, you know what? It didn't happen. And when they talk about Chicago and what happened there, Bill Ayers and Jeff Jones shockingly say we only had a couple of hundred people after an entire summer of promoting this event. And they were stunned. They thought there would be 100,000 people there marching with them. And it was like a ragtag group of 130 that went rampaging through the streets of Chicago, smashing windows in the days of rage with baseball bats. And they treat that as if it's the siege of Stalingrad or something. Like it was some incredible battle that they won. But the reason I wanted to do this episode is the amount of echoes that it has of today. The echoes of the FBI, the echoes of Antifa, the echoes of the bombings after George Floyd, the statue bombings. They go into Haymarket Square. This is, of course, Fred Hampton, who's killed in a shootout. He is their George Floyd, a little bit different than George Floyd. Fred Hampton was armed to the teeth, and they had a search warrant, the Chicago police, and they went in and got into a gun battle early morning when Hampton was in bed. Did they get the better of the gun battle? Absolutely. They riddled him with bullets, but he shot back, and there was plenty of ammunition on both sides of that thing. So the Black Panthers in Chicago turned it into a museum of death, and they parade everyone in the neighborhood in to see the blood in the bedroom and try to turn him, as communists do, into a martyr. That's one of their main games. They attempted to turn Fred Hampton into a martyr. I don't know how many people outside of a Black Studies class remember who Fred Hampton is, but they attempted to turn him into a martyr. Now, the Weather Underground and the Weathermen, who become the Weather Underground because of the women's movement, they believe that the white male privilege of the other members leads them to change the name from Weathermen to not Weather People, but the Weather Underground. So the Weather Underground is a name that Bernadine Dorhn and the other women insist upon having. Now, the Weathermen themselves comes from Terry Robbins, the guy who got blown to smithereens. They found his skin wrapped around the radiator. His carcass was wrapped around the radiator in the apartment. Ted Gold, like I said, I think they just found his thumb. And Diana Orton, I don't think they found any part of her. Her father, she grew up in a mansion. I don't know if you have a picture where she grew up in Illinois. Her father was a Republican Party official in Illinois. I think he had been on the state Senate in Illinois. This is her house where she grew up. That's why she was so bitter, because she was forced to grow up in this brutal abode, and was not happy about it. So
you know who did like her house, though, apparently? I guess the house is very famous because in the 1800s, this guy used to shoot rifles there.
Okay.
And that's the Prince of Wales, Edward VII, who also became King Edward, who followed Queen Victoria. So that family crazily had some deep money connection.
The Ortons, yeah. So anyway, so she was embittered about growing up with that wealth, and their entire struggle was about working with the African American bomb throwing versions of themselves, and their attempts to help blacks. Eventually, the blacks turned against them, and they were completely confused. But in the meantime, they would have crazy orgies in the back of a van. They took acid every day. They were, making bombs left and right. They brought in a guy named Fliegelman, Ron Fliegelman, who was their bomb making expert. They didn't know how to make a bomb. Obviously, what happened on West 11th Street, they felt they had to bring in an expert. So they brought in this other kid.
This is older, obviously, but this is him now. I don't have an earlier shot.
Okay. So the shot on the back, if you look how clean those bombs had taken out that building, this is what they intended to do around the country. And they begin to bomb the Capitol. They bomb banks. They bomb IT&T headquarters. They bomb the FBI. They bomb the New York City Police headquarters. They go on a bombing spree because of that guy Fliegelman, who came up with a great device. What the hell is that?
They even bombed the Thinker.
Oh yeah, they were big on bombing statues. They bombed the police Haymarket police statue in Chicago. Right. No. That's why we're doing this. They restored the statue, the Chicago authorities, and they blew it up again. So they blew up the same statue twice. So now the FBI is not interested in these bombings because they feel that these are local problems and it doesn't involve the FBI. So the New York City intelligence is involved in it. And once it begins to cross state lines, and the FBI gets involved. The FBI gets involved because the Nixon administration puts together what was known as the Houston Plan and some other plans that had spinoffs that allowed the FBI to form a group called 47. And 47 was a squad that they formed to go after the Weather Underground because Nixon and Hoover didn't want any part of this. Hoover was at the end of his life, and he denounced the use of Squad 47 because Hoover felt that this is going to come back to bite them on the ass. Squad 47 was a take off the gloves, black bag operation by the FBI to break into homes of the Weather Underground, steal their mail, tap their phones, do all these illegal things, which Nixon, maybe rightfully or wrongfully, felt was necessary to stop these bombings. Now, keep in mind, they bombed the goddamn Capitol, for Christ's sakes, and that hadn't happened since the British in 1804. The Capitol is bombed, the bathroom and the Senate. There's some photos, maybe Eric can dig out. There's one of Gerald Ford looking at the damage when he was president. This is a couple of years later after Nixon's gone, when Ford comes in, or possibly Ford as VP. I'm not really sure. There's Ford taking a look at the damage to the Capitol. Maybe I think he's president at that point. But the reality of it is their bombings were meant to be noted by the media, and they were being noted by the media. This is all from the underground, and the underground, they're trying to bring capitalism to its knees. But they're also trying to have people believe in what they say and create some warmth among the nation's youth. So one of my favorite quotes, she used to do a thing. She did a thing called the sign of the fork. Now, Bernadine is the sign of the fork, by the way, in case anybody at home is wondering what I'm doing, the sign of the fork. And that was her sign, Bernadine Dorhn. Bernadine Dorhn was considered the sex symbol of the counterculture. She wore knee-high boots and black leather mini skirts and blouses. She's a beautiful girl. Here's a picture of Bernadine Dorhn. I don't know if we have one. Maybe, yeah, there she is giving a press conference. This is outside of SDS. Now, SDS was Students for Democratic Society, which was kind of mainstream. It was on every college campus in America. SDS was against the war, and they had a lot of college students, maybe 100,000 members nationwide. This is Dorhn's FBI photo there. Interstate flight, mob action, riot, conspiracy. The Students for a Democratic Society was not radical enough for the Weathermen. The Weathermen came out of the Students for a Democratic Society. That's where they were born. It came from the Dylan song "Out of Subterranean Homesick Blues." You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. And what Dylan was saying, and what they were saying, was you don't need any more information to know where this is going, which is bombing and revolution, hence the name Weatherman that Terry Robbins pulled out of the Dylan song to create the name of the Weathermen. So
this is the original SDS leader who kind of got kicked to the side and pretty much calls them maniacs now in interviews.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right. Well, that's true. That's true. Well, Tom Hayden was an SDS leader too, and he would marry Jane Fonda, and he will later run for mayor of Los Angeles. I mean, there's a lot of spin-offs.
Yeah, here's Tom with Mark. Right.
Right.
So there you go.
I mean, yeah, it's funny because, I think it was Abby Hoffman said of Tom Hayden, he gives opportunism a bad name. Mark Rudd is even worse than Tom Hayden in that regard. These guys will surface during the Bush administration and try to rehabilitate themselves. Mark Rudd will end up teaching math at a community college in New Mexico. Not a happy camper, because you understand something, these were egotistical maniac rock stars in their minds. You know what I mean, Eric? And for them to be underground and not be able to do anything, these people were underground for 10 years. During the 10 years, they created these pipe bombs every once in a while and did this damage with pipe bombs. And give you the contrast between the two. Abby Hoffman was underground for the same amount of time. He became Barry Freed, took on the Army Corps of Engineers, testified in Congress, defeated the Army Corps of Engineers, preventing them from blowing up the Thousand Islands in the St. Lawrence River. And then, knowing he was going to get caught, testified before Moynihan's commission in the Capitol as Barry Freed. That's a little different than working at a children's bookstore on the Upper West Side that Bernadine Dorhn did. A completely different take. This is a good movie too, Running on Empty, with Joaquin Phoenix and Judd Hirsch. You might want to take a look at that. Christine Lottie. There's also Dead Presidents is another movie that covers this. And there's one that Robert Redford directed with Shia LaBeouf called The Company You Keep. It's another good movie. Stars Redford and LaBeouf, and a lot of people are in that movie. A lot of big stars. Susan Sarandon, and it's kind of covers this terrain again, the same fictional terrain. But I just want to read this quote from Bernadine Dorhn. First, they killed those pigs Then they ate dinner in the same room with them. Then they even shoved a fork into the pig Sharon Tate's stomach. Wild. And said this laughingly about the Manson family killing Sharon Tate and her friends, and then using the sign of the fork, as she suggested, to kill and eat your own parents. That's who Bernadine Dorhn is and was. And whatever the rehabilitation of Bernadine Dorhn to become this Bernadine Dorhn, railing against white supremacy and teaching in Chicago, is a bullshit version of Bernadine Dorhn. Do you have this tape or?
Yeah, this is her talking about that exact statement.
No, go ahead. Let me hear it.
I said once, January 1970, as an ironic joke, that Charles Manson had captured the American public imagination, and that you couldn't get enough of Charles Manson. It was on the front page of the papers. You know how mass murderers every 5 or 10 years, just, you can't get away from it. It's on the news constantly. You want to protect your children and your grandchildren from hearing it, but you can't because it's everywhere. And the Charles Manson murders were like that. We were like Fred Hampton and Mark Clark have just been murdered by the FBI and the Chicago Police Department. 1,000 people a day are being killed in Vietnam. Pay attention to the real issues. And you couldn't because of the Manson thing. So I ironically gave a speech saying, dig it. Charles Manson.
That's it.
And I meant it in the most ironic terms. How could I possibly support a mass murderer who was
I don't know. You were killing people
children?
with bombs. Jesus, how could I possibly do that?
She only said, dig it, Mark. Just dig it. Hey,
just dig it, bro.
Dig it.
Just blowing people up with bombs. Just dig it. He's stabbing them to death. What Manson was her competition is what I took away from that, right?
Yeah. Anyway, I thought you might enjoy that. I dug that up and I was like, love hearing her tap dance and explain her quote away, with a giant preamble. And I meant it ironically. So I guess she kept doing the fork ironically too. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, the
fork. See, she doesn't explain the fork because there's footage of her doing the fork saying, eat your parents, because it wasn't just one time. It was repeatedly that she did that. She's a lying sack of shit, Dawn, and we all know that. But nevertheless, there is a guy, this Squad 47 begins to come after them, and they're having no luck because they're being. And you said the FBI couldn't figure out where they're getting their money to live on, because they needed money, and they needed to pay rent, they needed to have cars and everything else. The money they were getting was from the radical lawyers that represented them in absentia, from the National Lawyers Guild, which is a breakaway offshoot communist version of the American Bar Association. These lawyers illegally funded these 10 most wanted list wanted on the FBI list terrorists because they loved them. If you listen to Fink and these other lawyers, Michael Kennedy, these were our heroes. We revere them. They don't hold back. They have written books themselves, the lawyers. The money came from wealthy, radical attorneys who kept sending them money so they could move around the country making freaking bombs and blowing shit up. Now, I don't know what we do about that as a country, because the same thing is happening today in weird ways with the judges corrupting our judicial system. This legal system of ours has been, you'll see later on with the FALN, how lawyers, these same leftist lawyers, represent the FALN, they represent the SLA, they represent the Black Liberation Army, they represent the Weathermen. It's the same people every time. And they're supplying all of them with money and aid while they're on the lam, aiding and abetting fugitives. And they're never called to account for it. They're never arrested. Their licenses are never revoked. They're never challenged in any regard. One woman lawyer named Fink was the one who smuggled in wire cutters to Willie Morales, the FALN bomb maker, who allowed him to get out of Bellevue, in the prison section of Bellevue, because she kept insisting that she not be searched because of client lawyer privilege. And they finally backed off of her one day, didn't search her, and she got in the wire cutters and the tools for him to escape from Bellevue. There's Willie. That's famous photo of Willie right there. Willie blew his hands off and his thumbs and he blew his eye out while making a bomb in his apartment for the FALN. This is a vicious, vicious Puerto Rican terrorist who would kill anybody for a pseudo independence movement of the island of Puerto Rico that has repeatedly, in 10 million elections, voted that they don't want to be an independent country, nor do they want to be a state. How do we know that? Because they keep voting that as a entity, they keep voting it. But this group, going back to 1950, when they attempted to assassinate Truman and machine gun the congressman of the United States with machine guns, cannot take no for an answer. And apparently the politicians are with them. And we'll get into that when we get into the FALN. But
reminds me of the IRA a little bit, that there were a lot of people that were funneling money to all the IRA terrorists.
Right. There's a romantic thing for the IRA, but keep in mind the IRA are in their own country.
Oh,
These Puerto Ricans are doing this in New York and Chicago. This would be like if the Cubans in Miami just started blowing up Miami. You just go, what's with these Cubans? They fled Castro. Yeah, now we're going to blow up Miami until we get rid of Castro. I mean, that's how crazy this was. The FALN, a million times more dangerous than the Weathermen, planted and blew up 130 different bombs in a period of 10 years. They blew up Francis Tavern down on Wall Street. You may have a little bit of footage or a photo of Francis Tavern, F-R-A-U-N-C-E-S, Tavern. Somebody once corrected me about that, where George Washington gave his famous farewell speech to his troops. They killed 4 people and injured like 29, one of the most famous bombings of all time in New York. And they still couldn't catch the FALN. When they got Morales, he had blown himself up. This is unbelievable. He blew himself up, and with no hands and no fingers and one eye, he was able to, you can't make this up, he was able to take the wire cutter that his lawyer gave him, cut the wires on his window in the Bellevue cell, the hospital cell in Bellevue, and with just no hands and no fingers, using a sheet into little pieces, make a strip down from the window and shimmy down to dropping onto the, this is Willie Morales right there, wanted by the FBI. Why is he wanted by the FBI? Because of the escape I just told you about. And where does he end up? In Cuba. Where does Joanne Chesimard end up? In Cuba. All of them end up because of Castro was supporting the Cuban revolutionaries in Puerto Rico. And Castro's Cuban agents trained 135 members of the FALN to blow shit up in New York, Chicago, and the United States. This is all from Castro, my friends. His Cuban intelligence operatives trained them on how to make bombs and how to deal with the police in the United States. And that's why they came here from Puerto Rico to do this, FALN. They're considered as big as Che Guevara is in Puerto Rico. Morales and Oscar, what's his face, who was, all of these people, just so you know, as long as we're on the FALN part of this thing, which is a couple of years later, the FALN, the people who were in the original 1950 assassination attempt on Truman are pardoned by Jimmy Carter, okay? The rest of them, the FALN guys, are pardoned by Bill Clinton. The final guy is pardoned by, in 2017, the final one, there he is, it's Oscar Hernandez.
Lopez.
Oscar Lopez, right, who was one of the chief of FALN. They caught him with a phony license by chance, driving a car, complete lark. And he refuses to cooperate. Every trial that they have by the FALN, 50 to 75 members come into the courtroom screaming and yelling and throwing things in each trial. Each member that's on trial begins to try to attack the judge every single time. Outside of the courtroom, are 200 to 300 Puerto Ricans with protest signs saying this is anti-Puerto Rican, demanding they get freed because they're heroes. These trials were not quiet events of the FALN. They were not quiet events, and they're convicted by judges who realize the ramifications. They're sentenced by judges who realize the ramifications that these are diehard ideological terrorists, and sentence them to the max every single time.
And who pardoned our friend here?
That one was he was the last one pardoned, and that was by Obama in 2017.
Right before he left office. Got to let the good people go.
Right. Now, in 1999, Bill Clinton pardons a bunch of them because he's told by Podesta that in 2000, a woman is going to be running for the U.S. Senate named Hillary Clinton in New York. And they have 1 million, that's right, 1 million Puerto Ricans in the state of New York. And surprisingly, Bill Clinton pardoned the last of the FALN members, releasing them from jail. These are hardcore motherfucking terrorists who are not only politically embraced, but also politically embraced for political reasons to help their own elections. Each one of these cases, each one of the pardons had either Gutierrez, in case of Obama, the Chicago communist congressman, or this guy up in the South Bronx, 1999. They each have political shepherds who bring this to the presidents, Democratic shepherds who are democratically elected people, Puerto Ricans, who get the presidents, in this case, Carter, Clinton, and Obama, to pardon every one of these terrorists. And that goes back to the assassins of Truman and the people in the that we covered in the other episode about the assassination attempts in the Congress, where they wound all these different congressmen with machine guns, opening fire in the United States Congress. I mention this only in contrast to a trespassing charge called January 6th and the amount of punishment that these people have received in the same Capitol building under the same Department of Justice under different presidents, to show you the contrast of political events. These were political events. The assassinations were, the bombings were, and the killing of all these people. These people served time, no doubt about it, but they never should have been pardoned by these three presidents. They went back to Puerto Rico and they were treated as freaking war heroes. And they got up there and they said repeatedly, if I had a chance, I'd blow them up again. If I had a chance, I'd kill an American president again. That's what they all said. This is a completely different contrast from how they're treating the January 6th protesters. And it's one of the reasons I want to bring it to your attention today.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, they do not feel bad about this. Neither.
No, I feel bad. They each and every one of them said they would do it again. There's nothing to feel bad of.
But yeah, I mean, neither does Bill Ayers and Bernadette Dorhn. Look, here's a line of people together. They're out there spouting it still.
Right. Okay. Just get that off the screen because I'm going to throw up. If you show me that one more freaking time, I'm going to throw up.
I had to suffer through it.
Yeah, dude, I'm not going to look at that again. Because what they do is they eventually begin to have children. And there's a photo of Bill Ayers becomes Mr. Bernadine Dorhn. Jeff Jones becomes more of a West Coast guy. On the back of Bill Ayers over there is a baby they had. You see that baby?
Yep.
Yeah, they will eventually move. I think in 79, they'll move to the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where she gets a job at a place called Teachers, which is a bar around the corner from where I lived. And she also gets a job at a kid's toy store on the Upper West Side, which I knew very well. And the kid, if you go back a little bit to that last photo.
Sure.
This kid here in the front is not their kid. This kid in the front is a kid that they took under their wing from one of their friends. And the friend they took this under, the father of that kid is David Gilbert.
Hold on, there's David. He's a sweetie.
The father is David Gilbert. He got a little bit roughed up there. And Kathy Bowden. Now, Kathy Bowden is famously involved, these two in 1981, which you're going to find out. Kathy Bowden has to go to work. So that baby here is Kathy Bowden on the right. Kathy Bowden has to go to work. So she has to find a babysitter for that baby. So she finds a babysitter and then goes to work. And she said, I'll pick the baby up at 5 o'clock. I'll be back. So where does she go to work? They go to work to rob the Brink's armored truck in Nanuet, New York, and Nyack in Rockland County. And some of our police official followers of this show will remember this as if it was freaking yesterday, because that event, which where they have now, what happened with Kathy Bowden is, and David Gilbert, they begin to join the Black Liberation Army, aka the family. Now, the Black Liberation Army operates out of the Bronx with a phony methadone clinic and a phony acupuncture clinic, getting government grants up the kazoo, but they rob banks every other month. And they're pulling down huge money in these bank robberies. So she gives this baby to a babysitter and goes to drive the getaway car along with another getaway car and a big Hertz rental truck. And they're supposed to meet in back of Corvettes at a shopping mall in Nanuet, New York, which is near Nyack, a little bit outside of the city, suburban area of northern Manhattan into West, a little bit north of Westchester. So the plot is to attack this Brink's armored truck. They've attempted this 4 or 5 times and they've called it off. Now, all the black guys have cocaine addictions, and the women claim to not even know that they did drugs, which is hard to believe. However, they need a lot of money because they're doing a lot of drugs, these black guys. The white women involved in this black family thing are political ideologues like Kathy Bowden. The black guys are just bank robbing thugs who spout some mumbo jumbo to these chicks who buy into that they are the new Symbionese Liberation Army or something. Anyway, they meet up with these 3 vehicles at Corvette store at the Nanuet Mall in Nyack, and the truck pulls up. They're coming out with a one of those push carts, Eric, with the money, and they're pushing the cart. And one guy's name is Page. The other one is named Trombino. Page and Trombino have worked together for the Brink's Armored Truck Service for 15 years. Page is about to retire, and Trombino and the guy who is driving the truck have been friends for 15 years, the 3 people involved in the truck. The guys jump out of the back of the Hertz giant rental truck, the big one. They jump out of the back, and there's 5 black guys with carbines and semi-automatic weapons. And they open fire without even saying, drop the money. In other words, they don't say anything. They just jump out and start shooting. Page is immediately killed. Trombino has his arm ripped off. The guy, I think his name was Harris, who's the driver, they launch a shotgun shell through the front of the window of the truck, blowing him back against the back of the truck, knocking himself out. He's in the driver's seat. He's knocked unconscious. The guy who is dead is Page. They actually walk over to Page, put a gun to his head, and execute him point blank, right? Right. So meanwhile, Trombino is trying to get a couple of rounds off with a shotgun, but his arm's blown off, but it's hanging on by a little bit. Now, I'm going to tell you about Trombino because he deserves, and people who know this story from New York know who Trombino is, because Trombino will recover from this. Trombino will then go back to work for another 20 years or so for the Brink's Armored Truck Company. And in 1993, he's delivering money to the World Trade Center, where the first World Trade Center bombing goes off, and he survives that. In 2001, he delivers money to the North Tower of the World Trade Center and is finally blown to smithereens and is killed. You can't make this up. That's the guard. That's the Brink's Armored Car. Here's a sign commemorating the spot where this happened in Rockland County. Now, I'm not done with this, because the 3 of them, the 3 cars, begin to escape with the money, and they pull in $1.5 million in cash. 1981, $1.5 million in cash. They left $1.2 million in the truck, which they didn't have time. Tie a robbery took 45 seconds, what I've just described to you, what they've just done, because they had planned this out to execute these guys. This was the plan. This was not something gone crazy. So everybody who watches this show, who is a law enforcement official, knows that when there's a robbery there, everyone's heading for the Tappan Zee Bridge. Everyone's trying to get to the New York State Thruway. The police know one thing: block the Tappan Zee Bridge. Every cop in that region, FBI, state trooper, Rockland County Police, every single law enforcement official knows you got to block the Tappan Zee Bridge. And in fact, that's where they're going at high speeds, because everybody knows what's going on by now. This shootout is watched by people in a house nearby. They have all the license plates. They have the car descriptions by a girl who's studying for an algebra test, a community college girl who looks out the window, takes down the license plates, description of the cars, says there's 6 black guys standing outside with automatic weapons, M1 carbines and stuff like that, and handguns and everything else, and shotguns, which is a little striking to be in a white suburban neighborhood like that. But nevertheless, every cop in the area is headed towards this thing to try to block them from getting on to the exit, I think 59 of the New York State, if I remember. I think it's 59 up there. Check me on that. To get onto the New York State Thruway. If they get to the Thruway, they're gone. They're gone. You could get anywhere from the New York State Thruway, Massachusetts, Canada, anywhere you want to go. So they put a patrol car right there blocking the exit entrance to the New York State Thruway. The traffic jam starts backing up, and the cops see this, and one of the cops pulls over the vehicle, and in the front seat is David Gilbert driving. The Black Liberation Army used these people as decoys. That was the point of using these white people. They spoke about it out loud. They said, "You're our decoys." They put Kathy Bowden in the passenger side for that purpose. The cops pull them over. They got shotguns out because they're looking for 6 black guys. And they all got their guns drawn, and she has a panic attack or something. They gets out of the car. The shotgun is on her. David Gilbert is doing some sort of yoga breathing exercises, according to him, in the driver's seat. And in the back are 5 heavily armed black guys with bulletproof vests and machine guns and shotguns hiding in the back of this freaking van and waiting to spring out. And what they're waiting for is Kathy Bowden, the same piece of shit that says to them, "Put your guns down. I'm just a mother." And they put their guns down. And that's the signal for these black guys to exit the back of the van and blow these guys to smithereens. So they immediately kill a black state trooper, the first black cop from Rockland County, the only black guy on the force. He's gut shot, and they execute him right then and there. There's a big shootout right then and there, and they begin to escape after this shootout. They run into the guy who's at the entrance to the Rockland County, to the entrance to the Thruway. He's blasting them with a shotgun out his window as they're approaching him. Meanwhile, Kathy Bowden tries to escape on foot, running alongside the side of the highway, when an off-duty prison guard with his gun and badge tackles this bitch and arrests her at gunpoint. A complete off-duty guy. This is all off-duty cops coming to this scene because they know the bat signal has gone off. And they know that this is the SLA, BLA, or whatever the hell it is, that this is a group of militant people who are doing this and have done this before. So it's not the first time this has happened. So a bunch of them escape. They catch Kathy Bowden. They catch Gilbert. They catch the other white woman. And they are now incarcerated. And she is sentenced, I think, to 30 to life. David Gilbert gets 30 to life. And she can't pick up her baby that day. Who picks up the baby? The baby will eventually be transferred and raised by Bernadine Dorhn and Bill Ayers. If you go back to that photo that you showed, they become the baby's adoptive parents. They raise that baby. That baby will be raised in a communist household and drilled. The little blonde boy on the bottom will be drilled with communist dogma he will be raised as a communist in a communist household, and that baby will become the district attorney of the city of San Francisco, driving it into the ground until he's recalled by the people of San Francisco in a recall 2 years ago. That's Chesa Boudin. He will go on before this job to be the translator for the dictator of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez. That's who these people are. That's why it's important today that we understand the roots of the Weather Underground, that we understand who the BLA was, we understand who the Black Panthers were, who Joan Chesimard was, who killed a state trooper and was protected by Castro her entire life until she died quietly in her sleep a couple of years ago, never extradited because no president could get Castro to extradite Joanne Chesimard, a Black Panther and a BLA member who killed a state trooper. Now, getting back to the Weather Underground, they begin to need money for their operations. They're on the West Coast, and they need money to survive. And there's a group called the League of Far Out Men. I forget what it was called. It was called the League of Something Gentlemen, and they were an acid cult in Laguna Beach, which is a beautiful place down there. If you want to go down to Southern California, I recommend you go to Laguna, below Manhattan Beach, below Huntington Beach. It's just gorgeous down there. There was another guy who they worshiped to live down there named Timothy Leary. So the League of Acid Gentlemen worshiped Timothy Leary. They were an acid cult, and Leary was part of this group. Here's Leary right now, which we're going to get into. Leary gets arrested, and he's imprisoned in the men's colony, which is a medium or low security prison. He gets arrested for marijuana, but he's hunted by everyone, Leary. They get him on a marijuana beef, and he's up in San Luis Obispo, which is a mid-coastal area of California, where he's in the penal colony, this minimum security men's colony up there in San Luis Obispo. So the League of Acid Gentlemen will pay the Weather Underground to break Timothy Leary out of jail. Now, why do they want to do this? One, they need the money. Two, they want to merge with the counterculture, who they've denounced repeatedly. These are such smug sons of bitches that they hated hippies. They hated rock music. They hated the counterculture. They looked down upon them until they came up with this idea of freeing Timothy Leary and becoming heroes of the counterculture. This was all planned out. That is why they did it, and that was so they could get new followers, because they had nobody following them anymore.
Wow.
Anyway, they take the money, $25,000 in 1974-5 money. It's a good chunk of change for them, right? So they break Leary out of jail, and breaking him out of jail really meant Leary slid down a drain pipe to a waiting car, which was driven by a guy named Clayton von Leidengraf. That's right, Clayton von Leidengraf, who was 60. You can't make this up. Clayton von Leidengraf was a Trotskyite who was 63 years old, who became some sort of mentor to the Weather Underground until he was expelled for being too crazy for the Weather Underground. Clayton von Leidengraf will come back years later to advise the BLA and the family and the SLA on how to do things. So he's one of the drivers of the car that helps escape free Timothy Leary. Timothy Leary is driven to Oregon. He's driven to Southern California. He's driven to different states until he's put on a plane to fly to Algiers, where he is met by another guy who's in hiding named Eldridge Cleaver. So Eldridge Cleaver and Timothy Leary are now together in Algiers in absentia from the FBI in the United States. And I'll be back in just a second.
Talking about leaving hanging out there. Wow. Eldridge Cleaver, Timothy Leary. Good times to all. Let me see here. I have a feeling that we're going to be getting into another gentleman here soon. Anybody in the chat know who this guy is? This is the illustrious Donald David DeFreeze. And he is going to be stepping into this mess of a tale, I have a feeling, before we know it. You got it, 221B. That would be Donald DeFreeze of the SLA. And there's another tie with him. I don't want to jump too far ahead.
Who was that? What was going on there?
I was just teasing that we're going to be reading another character probably after a while, Donald DeFreeze.
Oh, yeah, we're going to. Okay. There's a lot to this. I'm sorry I'm talking so fast, but there's a lot of stuff to this. And I just wanted to get the Weather Underground part under our belt so we can move on to others. But the Weather Underground, what I'm trying to say is they begin to loan out their bomb maker to these other groups, to the FALN, to the SLA, and to others. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But I'm trying to also explain that Squad 47 is hot on their tail. Now, Squad 47 is being run by a cat. Well, one of them is Clarence Kelly, who's the head of the FBI. Another one is Mark Felt, who's second in command of the FBI. Another one is William Reagan, who's the first beard. And I just want to explain what the beards are. This is the beards, and the beards, and I think that is Cyril Payne up in the upper left, second from the left, without the thing on his eyes. That's Cyril Payne. Cyril Payne and the beards did this underground operation against the Weather Underground without Hoover's knowledge. Hoover's still alive at this point. And they knew that if Hoover ever stumbled onto this, he would flip out and they'd all be fired. Show the picture of their graduating class, Eric, what they looked like before. There's a shot of them graduating from the FBI Academy. Here they are. Well, this is what they look like before.
Well, Hoover would never allow that hair or the beards. He would go bonkers.
That's what I said. Okay, Now go back to the other picture. This is a secret organization within the FBI. I just want to show you this photo again, because this is what they do. This group, the Beards, again, there's Cyril Payne up there, one of the Beards. They begin to infiltrate the counterculture in California and in Miami and the Republican and Democratic conventions, and they begin to arrest a number of these guys. That's a phony. There's a phony mugshot to set him up as a criminal, so he'd be approved by the Weather Underground.
He really looks like it, though. He's got it down.
Yeah, he really does. And he takes acid with him. He's got a book called Deep Cover, which I try to make into a movie. And of course, I was laughed out of the room that anybody would want to make a movie about this. Wrote a book called Deep Cover, which I highly recommend if you can find it. It's out of print. But anyway, so Cyril Payne says we can't take it anymore. We got to go into action. We got to get aggressive. And part of Squad 47 was to do stuff like this. And Squad 47 begins to do black bag operations. A black bag, obviously, we saw that in the Liddy episode. Liddy was one of the top black bag guys when he was with the FBI. But there's other guys who are black bag experts. And that means steaming open their mail, getting it out of their mailboxes, wiretapping all their phones without the judges, because these guys didn't all had assume. And think about it from the FBI's point of view. Nobody's using their real names. They're on the run. They're in safe houses. They can't go to a judge and say, we need a wiretap for Bernadine Johnson, aka Bernadine Dorhn, aka it's just not going to work. So, and this is approved by the President of the United States. It's disapproved by J. Edgar Hoover, who says we're not going to do this, but they do it anyway behind Hoover's back. And this is going to come back to bite them in the ass years later. And the reason I'm mentioning it now is because it's the right thing for them to do at the right time. But things are going to change politically, which they did not see coming. So what the FBI does, they put out trying to search for these people all over the country, and they only have one guy And that is a guy named Grathwohl. And Larry Grathwohl he was a former U.S. Army intel operative. He had fought in Vietnam, got a Bronze Star, Vietnam veteran, came back, volunteered for the FBI, and his job was to infiltrate the Weather Underground and the left. He did it. And Grathwohl was the #1 infiltrator of the FBI. And he wrote a book called Bringing Down America that I highly recommend if you could find it. Again, these books are out of print. If we could find a PDF of these books, I have the books, but I can't just give them up. If we could find a PDF of Bringing Down America by Grathwohl, Eric, or the other one by Cyril Payne, Deep Cover, those would be two great books for the locals community.
Okay. Well, to start, I have that 1976 movie that I upscaled that'll be uploaded to locals.
Oh, you're talking Emilio D'Antonio's movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more of an audio tape. I don't want to get anybody's expectations up, but because you don't see their faces, it's just the back of their heads. Haskell Wexler smartly shoots the whole film in a mirror. So you see the filmmakers instead of the subject of the film, and the filmmakers begin to get a little testy, saying, look, you guys signed up for this. You're just talking to us with this dogma. We want to know who you are. And Jeff Jones says, I feel very uncomfortable talking to you with these cameras. And they said, but this is what you wanted. We didn't come to you. You came and met us at Lundy's in Sheepshead Bay, where they negotiated this deal. And then they flew them out to LA, or they got out to LA to this house where they shoot the film, which is run by Harron and D'Antonio. But anyway, underground, they begin to create a publication called Prairie Fire, and they run off 500,000 or 100,000 copies of this Prairie Fire on a printing press that they have. And like Daniel Ellsberg with the Pentagon Papers, they self-distribute this magazine called Prairie Fire. And it only takes a spark, Eric, to start a Prairie Fire, is what it says on the inside of the publication. And that comes from this obscure mass murderer named Chairman Mao Zedong, who's their hero. No, I'm not kidding. This is where Prairie Fire comes from. And the slogan comes out of Mao's Little Red Book. These are Maoists. By their own admission, they are communists, which they repeatedly say over and over and over again, even in the movie, that we are communists. And not only are we communists, we're Maoists. We worship Chairman Mao. This is who they are. This is who Bernadine Dorhn is. This is who Bill Ayre is Jeff Jones is, Kathy Wilkinson, and also Kathy Boudin. So the thing that is unusual about this is that Bill Ayres, and when they surrender, Kathy Boudin, Bernadine Dorhn will immediately get her job at the University of Chicago, as does Bill Ayres. He begins to teach again like nothing happened. And he begins to ghostwrite and write articles. He writes a memoir for an obscure guy. And in the memoir, because he's so arrogant and so egotistical, in the memoir, he leaves clues of himself in somebody else's biography. I've never heard of this before, but maybe that's what people do. I don't know. I've never been a ghostwriter. He leaves in the book clues of his own maritime background. In other words, he was in the Merchant Marines for a brief, merchant Navy as a merchant seaman for a brief period of time, Bill Ayres. So he leaves clues in the memoir on knots, like naval knots, and some naval clues and little tidbits of clues about maritime things, and just scattered through the book. And I've read them. I've read those clues. And it's weird. He kind of blends it in, but you're just going like, is the guy, the ghostwriting guy he's writing for, he's never been in the Navy. What is this doing in here? Okay, so it's put in there for two reasons. One is ego on the part of Bill Ayre, and two is to prove that he did it. And the reason he has to prove that he did it is the guy he's writing the memoir for is a guy named Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Hussein Obama. That's right. Bill Ayers, the head of the Weather Underground, wrote Barack Obama's autobiography memoir. And we know this because he wanted to get more money later, years later, when Obama became president and went public with it. And he demanded more money from Obama. And Obama's response, being a Marxist revolutionary himself, was to simply never speak to Bill Ayers ever again. Came up in the debates with John McCain. Right, Eric? Right?
Well, and that's why I think he left. He knew Obama.
Yes, yes.
He put all of that in there, and he talked about it in an interview where he's saying he had, when Obama was up there with those debates, he had all of his students watching in the living room of the debates, and they're like, "Wait a minute, Bill Ayers, he has the same name as you," and he's like, "Yeah, that's me." And Obama's saying, just because I came across somebody who did something horrible 40 years ago, I don't know him. We have no relation. He completely disavowed him. Yeah. So it was smart of him to leave all those references in there. It's like, oh yeah, you're going to disavow me? Yeah, let's look at this.
Right. No, that's absolutely correct. There's more to it because he wanted to get some money out of him because the book took off and blah, blah, blah. And it also forces Obama to acknowledge his relationship to Bill Ayers, one of the most notorious terrorists in the history of the United States, but not as crazy as the FALN, as I said before. But let's look at another group that we have called the SLA, Eric, because they become almost like a cult with Donald DeFreeze. I think you were showing a picture of DeFreeze. DeFreeze had been in.
Here's another one of DeFreeze.
That's obviously Tanya on the bottom there, and Tanya will become a revolutionary on her own right. So Tanya obviously is Patty Hearst, and the Hearst family is blackmailed by the SLA. She's kidnapped, quote unquote, by the SLA. She's put into a closet. Everybody has their way with her. Donald DeFreeze. They have this is one of the. There's so many weird things about the SLA. I could go on for a whole episode on the SLA. They have, on purpose, one community toothbrush that they're forced to use. One toothbrush, Eric, for the whole SLA. Anyway, here's a picture of DeFreeze, a.k.a. Field Marshal Sinque. They're always a field marshal, these guys. They're never a sergeant, although Sergeant Doe in Liberia was a sergeant. This guy was a field marshal. I say Sinque. I've heard Sinque. I've heard different things. I've always said Sinque. I've heard Sinque my whole life. I've heard it differently, though. Anyway, so Sinque is the leader. He's not very bright. He's also into drugs. He's also coked out of his mind. He wants to begin to perform bank robberies, and he is batshit crazy. He really is batshit crazy. They have the Harrises, which is a married couple, a white couple who also live with them. They have these different white people who can then do their bidding for them in open society. So they go into an Army Navy store down here in LA. They flee San Francisco, gets too hot for them. They flee Oakland and they come down here to LA. And he's got a certain amount of money from the bank robberies that they've done up in Northern California. So they drive around a van. They've got another car, and this is great. They rent a house, and the house becomes too hot, and they begin to flee that house. And as they're fleeing, they go to this Army Navy store. I think it's on South La Brea, if I remember correctly, or South La Cienega in Compton. And they go in there and they shoplift some stuff, and the manager comes out. And the manager doesn't like his stuff being shoplifted. He jumps onto the back of one of the guys who shoplifted and starts getting into a fight with him to get the stuff back that they've stolen from the Army Navy store. And Patty Hearst jumps out of the van with her semi-automatic weapon and sprays the streets with bullets right there on La Cienega, taking out the window, the huge window of this Army Navy store, and they jump into the van and flee. This is the Patty Hearst who says she was brainwashed, by the way. She didn't have any brainwashing to jump out of that freaking van with a semi-automatic M1 carbine and start shooting up the entire street. But they get away. And when they get away, they begin to rob other banks, and they're on the run. So they see in the hood in Compton, late at night, this is 2:00 in the morning, they see the only light on in the neighborhood. And Sing-Q knocks on the door, and some black people are in there partying. And he says, "You mind if we come in?" And they go, "No, come on in." "But who are you?" And they go, "We're the SLA." And they go, "SLA?" They're drinking wine. They got music going. They go, "What's the SLA?" They go, "We're the Symbionese Liberation Army. We just moved to LA." They go, "Really?" And he goes, "Here's a couple $100 for your time." And they go, "That's great. Come on in." So not only do they come in, they load in all their machine guns, all their dynamite, all their grenades, all their tear gas. And these women have children sleeping in the other room. They have a grandmother who comes by to take the kids, who gets angry that the SLA is in there. Everyone in Compton by 6:00 in the morning knows that this house now has the SLA in it. Not only do they know, the news media knows. And the news media shows up with a new device called a remote video camera, Eric. This is the SLA shootout, which is going to happen. I don't know if you have any video of it.
Gotta be careful, but
the SLA shootout shown here. This is the first time they were able to use handheld video camera.
Kind of like Waco.
Yeah, Waco in a weird way, but these guys were loaded for bear and wanted to die.
Sure.
And had all the ammunition in there, and they knew the police were coming. However, who doesn't get caught? The Harrises and Patty Hearst. And they go on the lam, and they go to the Poconos, and they go to the Catskills. And in the same year that they're on the run, the FBI comes to the town where I'm living and pulls me over looking for Patty Hearst. Me, living up at when I was at the Hunter Mountain ski shop. The FBI descended out of the blue on the entire town of Tannersville and Hunter, New York, where I was living, working in that ski shop when we had Sonora House in Haines Falls, which was the third town. The FBI came in with such heavy presence. Everybody said, "What the hell's going on?" And quickly we learned that they were looking for Patty Hearst. And they were there for a couple of days, stopping every car, knocking on doors. They had strong leads that Patty Hearst and the Harrises were in that town. They were not in that town because I was in that town. They were in a town fairly close in the Poconos, which is another resort area in Pennsylvania, not that far away from the Catskills mountains. Wow. So So they almost got her. She gets escapes from there. And the Harrises are fighting. They're beating the crap out of each other. Mrs. Harris gets a black eye every other day. Patty Hearst is now trying to find an exit strategy, but is eventually apprehended by the FBI, forced to stand trial. Her father hires F. Lee Bailey and all these heavyweight attorneys. She's still convicted within
Jolly West.
Yeah, Jolly West comes in as a witness. She's still convicted by the jury in a couple of hours and sentenced to, I think, 30 years or 25 years in prison. Again, the sentence is commuted by Jimmy Carter.
Oh, I thought it was Bill Clinton.
No, Jimmy Carter. The parents come to see Carter, and they have some reason to let her go. Obviously, the parents had a lot of money, Eric, so they went to DNC operatives at first.
Amazing. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Commuted by Jimmy Carter, pardoned by Bill Clinton. She got the full suite.
No, she was already out for years. The pardon was just a thing on paper, the pardon, but she got out because of Jimmy Carter is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Pardons are great, but the situation becomes really hard on top of the FBI, who were opposed to these pardons. Obviously, it takes the wind out of their sails. When you begin to running on empty is another good. I don't know if you showed that one, but running on empty is another good one. But the Oscar Lopez and the FALN, which is a long name Spanish thing which I can't pronounce. The acronym is FALN. for some reason, and they begin to bomb every single thing in sight in New York. They just go batshit bombing crazy for the nation of Puerto Rico, which is not a nation. I don't know what it is, an island protectorate of the U.S. I mean, I guess we own it. Now, the reason the FALN story is so interesting is they're backed by Catholics in the Episcopal Church, not unlike what you were saying with the IRA, Eric. The Episcopal Church becomes a front for the Puerto Rican terrorists out of Chicago and New York. There's a social justice movement in the Catholic Church that is centered in the Episcopal Church, the Latin version of the Episcopal Church, or the Latins who are running these certain Episcopal churches, that are funding money to them. And the members of the FALN have incredible, normal, straight jobs like you couldn't believe. Because they have wives and kids, they will be the ticket manager at TWA. They will work in the city health department. They were working in the government. The jobs that these bombers had in the FALN are astonishing.
Amazing. I'm not completely surprised, and that's something that Bill Ayers has. He's not FALN, but he has some of that bit too. That they stole a lot of, as he put it, dead kids' names.
Well, they would walk through the graveyards at night with flashlights looking for dead babies, and then they would get the birth certificates, and then from there,
library card to.
The FBI got caught up on that because somebody gave him a tip at a clerk's office. And a guy came in to pick up his birth certificate at this clerk's office. I think it was in Pennsylvania, Lazare. And he was told that to wait a minute. And they contacted the cops. And the guy just pulled out his gun right then and there and had the cop and the clerk get down on the ground. He was going to execute him and just drove off at high speed. So, I mean, a lot of these guys got caught or got away with just the skin of their teeth, for stuff that they were attempting to do because the cops were closing in on them.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, with the FALN, they are really, really the most professional of all of the terrorist groups. As I said earlier, the reason I just found out that to be true is because they were trained by Cuban intelligence and Fidel Castro's men on how to do this professionally. And the bomb making was still taught to them by Ron Fliegelman, the bomb maker for the Weather Underground. So the connection between FALN and the Weather Underground is there through Fliegelman and some others. And the lawyers, obviously, there was a lawyer, like I said, Liz Fink, Michael Kennedy, no relation to the Kennedy family, was one of the lawyers. Dennis Cunningham was another one of these radical communist lawyers. They had a network. They really did, Eric. And these people were true believers, as were the lawyers. And they were communists as well, Eric.
It's sick.
So Bernadine Dorhn turns herself in, right? And nothing happens to her. Nothing. They all turn themselves in. And if they got probation, that was a lot. They didn't get anything. They had dropped the charges against Bernadine Dorhn and Bill Ayers. Now, what did they do? They arrested the FBI agents. You say, what? Because Jimmy Carter comes into office and Gerald Ford goes out, Griffin Bell becomes the Attorney General of the United States, and they go after the FBI of the Justice Department. They indict Clarence Kelly, the head of, I swear to God, they indict Clarence Kelly. They indict 6 upper-level FBI agents because they believe they unfairly went after their political kindred cousins. These people who are their cousins are now let free. All of these people are freed that I mentioned earlier, and they go after and indict the head of the FBI, the head of the freaking FBI, and the number 2 man, Mark Felt, and the number 3 man, Miller, and also Kearney was another one that was indicted. He was the John Kearney. He was 55 years old, 1972 with the FBI. He was the guy running. He was at a New York office. He was the guy running Squad 47. Kearney's indicted. Kelly's indicted, Mark Felt's indicted, and when Felt goes to trial, a guy shows up as a character witness as his trial named Richard Nixon. Nixon shows up in court on behalf of the FBI because they were following his orders. They're found guilty anyway. It's a fine. They get a fine and probation, no jail time. Kelly's eventually, the charges are dropped on Kelly. But the damage to the morale of the FBI, if you talk to the FBI agents at that time, they are devastated by this action by Jimmy Carter. To go after, when all of the Weather Underground bombers and the FALN are let free by Jimmy Carter, and they go after the actual FBI itself, the morale in the FBI was devastated, which is what they wanted after they got Nixon. And Gerald Ford was installed, and they put in this weak-ass Jimmy Carter.
By the way, it was ironic that you have Richard Nixon coming in and speaking on the behalf of Deep Throat.
Ironic or not, we're not going to find that out till 2005.
No, I know, but I'm just pointing out an interesting little hiccup.
Right? No. Like, I know. But Nixon was a trooper, and he wanted to do the right thing. I mean, these were his men. I mean, these guys, they didn't go to jail, but I'm just trying to show you that it can be done today, people. Obviously, the FBI has completely switched sides, and everybody's saying, well, how can you indict Comey? How can you indict the guy who's there now? It was done in 1975. The same thing happened. They were indicted once the administrations shifted and switched power. Once Ford was out, Jimmy Carter was in. This is how they went after their enemies in the Democratic Party. They didn't prosecute these bombers. They didn't prosecute these Puerto Rican terrorists. They went after the people who were the heroes in this story, the FBI, at that time. At that time. They've since switched sides now. And just so you know, it can be done. If the administration switches again, I should hope that who's ever in the presidency, when it switches, wink, wink, should go after these guys like was done following the Nixon administration.
All true. Wow.
I hope that's enough for you for one episode. So,
well, you know what? I think it's enough, and we have some super chats. We got some.
I'm exhausted from this whole thing. I need
them. Really? We'll try to revive you. We've got super chats.
Okay, I just want to add this one thing. When Mark Felt went to trial with Miller in that case, 300 FBI agents stood on the stairs in suits and ties at Foley Square in New York and the federal court. And when Miller and Felt got out of the car, they broke into applause, and they gave a press conference to 300 FBI agents, just how devastating this was to their morale. But go on, Eric.
All right. On that note, super chat from Montine McCord. Bill and Bernadine monitored Barry Soetoro. That's nice.
I don't know. Mentored is right. Yeah.
Yeah. It has been stated that he determined he was going to run for president supposedly in Bill Ayer's living room. Like he was involved. I mean, the whole.
Oh, no, absolutely. It was a fundraiser. We had parties there and everything else. Yep.
Let me see. Can we all please agree to stop calling the left and call them Marxists, which is what they really are? I think Mr. Groubert will agree.
Wait, I mean, I'm the one who keeps saying that, lady. What are you telling me to say? I'm the one who keeps saying that. Are you telling me to say that? I'm the one who's telling everyone else to say it.
I know. I prefer the good old commie. Anthony Jarrett, just wanted to want both of you to know I've had a hard month. Lost my father a few weeks ago. Your videos and streams got me through. Appreciate you both. Learning while being distracted. I seriously can't thank you both enough.
Thank you. Sorry if you lost, Jared. Sorry.
And he sent another $50 saying the same thing. I'm really sorry for your loss.
I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry.
I mean, that is the worst. Life of Brian. How many of today's bad actors, Psaki, Garland, have family or organizational ties to communists? Probably more than you think.
But still with Psaki. Psaki was a spokesperson for the CIA and worked for the CIA originally before she got to be the White House press secretary, and now she's working for the networks, Eric, or right? Okay, so she's clearly got a background in the deep state. Garland, I think, is just a mutt. He's just some doofus that they pulled out like a Griffin Bell. He's the equivalent of Griffin Bell in my opinion. Just some weak ass attorney general.
I don't know. There's that Trevor Loudon communist list that may have them listed. I know he does a lot of Congress. There's a lot of ties, and Mark can tell you. Even doing this show, every time we turn around, he'll go, "Oh, guess what? I just found out. Such and such is the cousin to such and such," and it's
yeah. That's why I just want to say, one of my favorite slogans of all times: "Death to the fascist insect that preys on the life of the people. All power to the people." That was the slogan of Sinq at the SLA.
He was surprised.
That was on every single communique the SLA ever put out. Was that slogan was on there with their Symbionese Liberation Army snakehead thing.
Well, and don't forget, I mean, we're not going to go into it today, but SLA and Donald DeFreeze was run by this guy who was tied to the CIA. A lot of people feel Colton Westbrook.
Well, it could be. When he was in prison. Yeah, a lot of stuff happened in prison.
Yeah. Similar thing as Manson and things that were going on. Same prison, too. Anyway, James Colebrook, you guys are badass at your true stories.
They're all true, bro. I mean, whether you believe me or not, I mean, these are all resources and stories that are sourced in books I'm trying to mention so I don't sound like a psycho.
True. The real Terry. This can be seen as penance for being 45 minutes late. Question: will you be presenting all JFK programs for all of the month of November? Probably not. I don't know yet.
No, why should we do that, bro? Why should we do that?
I mean, Freeform Friday is not a JFK, so that's automatically not going to.
I think we're doing something on thanks.
We're definitely, and we'll be getting into that. We will be doing something for.
You think it'll make this guy happy? This fat bastard who wants us to do every day a JFK show. So this fat bastard can sit on his couch naked. Come on.
I don't know. He can get naked in trouble. No. PJ's Everyday Adventures. Discovered you guys some months back, and I've been hooked ever since. Mark's storytelling is amazing, and like getting a drink from an informational fire hose.
Sometimes this fire hose has to interrupt the show to go to the bathroom, but thank you.
Yeah.
The fire hose is getting old and shriveled, so it doesn't make it through 2.5 hours.
Oh, good Lord. We're up 90 minutes.
There's so many of these groups. You're right. I mean, there were so many, and it wasn't that they were regular. I mean, some of them would disappear for a year or two and come back. Yeah. And just say, we're back. The Mel Torme Liberation Army.
You know what it reminds me of a little bit is if you look at the formation of bands in rock music through history, how you have like this person drops out of this band and they show up in this band over here. And then it's a little bit of that crazy cross-pollination. Let's see. Thurston Howell III. Mark is stronger than a garlic milkshake.
That sounds disgusting.
Cheers.
That sounds like the grossest thing of all time. Here's the good news. We got you a milkshake. The bad news is it's garlic flavored,
Hey, you'll feel it. Pasha, Mark, you spun through this very quickly. I'm definitely going to need to listen to it again, maybe on 3/4 speed. Thanks for another stellar show.
I will listen to Pasha.
All right. And I'm going to go to some tips here real quickly. Steph K sent a tip saying, "Ooh, I'm excited for this one. Strap in, folks. I hope you enjoyed it."
By the way, Jane Alpert, who has another good book called Growing Up Underground that I recommend. It's out of print. You can find that book. Ended up underground being a secretary for a rabbi. I mean, the jobs that they did have are hysterically funny. But I'm sorry, go on.
No, that's awesome. Jay Jacoby sent a tip saying this is great. SOS American sent a tip saying, "Hi Mark, is a book auction something you would consider?"
A book auction?
Well, then you wouldn't have the book anymore.
Why should I
yeah.
auction off my books? What does that mean?
You got to let them die first.
Look,
And
if you want to get involved, the easiest way is through the PayPal book fund account. And then I could, thank you in public on the show for donating to the book fund, which pays for all these out of print books. I can't stress this enough. To me, it's like I'm having a great time because there's money coming, $5 and $10 and $20 to the book fund. And it does add up, folks. So it really does help. PayPal and Venmo and stuff is down below. Thanks.
All right. So American said, any thoughts or show planned considering Tupac's family, the Panthers, and CIA connections?
What? What did you say?
Any shows planned because Tupac is tied in with the Black Panthers and all that.
No, we're gonna cover it. We're gonna cover it this way. I mean, there's been a million docs on Tupac. To paraphrase Chris Rock about Biggie Smalls and Tupac being assassinated, Chris Rock famously said, "Those N-words weren't assassinated; they were murdered." And that's from Chris Rock.
Fair enough. Mo Bishop says, see you in Dallas. Well, here we go. And that tips off to a statement here.
What's going on?
Well, if you want to know more, we have links in the description on Rumble and on YouTube. And people on Locals already know.
Here we go.
Mark and I will be in Dallas in November, the 17th through the 20th, for the 60th anniversary of the JFK assassination at the JFK Lancer Conference. Not only will we be there, but we got a special deal for everybody, all of our listeners and any of your friends, for physical tickets or virtual. You don't even have to physically go. If you can't do it, we get it. You can buy a virtual ticket. There's a coupon code also in the description for 15% off.
What?
And if you do want to travel, there's a link there to book your hotels to get the conference discount. So
wait. It's one hotel. It's the Lorenzo Hotel. So it's not hotels, plural. It's the Lorenzo.
I didn't think I said that. But anyway, you can get a hotel conference rate with this. Right. And Mark and I will be there, but not only will we be there, there is a ton of JFK luminaries. It's an
all-star time. Yeah, it's an all-star team. This is a JFK all-star team, Eric. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yep. How many of you enjoyed Vince Palomara?
He's coming. He's coming.
Anybody have questions about the Zapruder film?
Grodin's going
to be there.
Dude, this is it. This is the Woodstock of JFK. 3 days of love, peace, and happiness and bullets. This is the Woodstock Music and Arts Festival of the JFK assassination. So the Lorenzo Hotel, November 17th, 18th, 19th, was the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Eric and I are going to be ensconced there, and the conference goes on for 3 days. I urge you to get tickets because they're going to go fast. The virtual ones, obviously, you can watch it, but it's much better for you want to have a meetup with us. We'll be there. We're going to be doing a show from there. And we're going to intermingle with these JFK rock stars and compare notes. So we haven't said this because we were trying to put this together. And now it's together, folks. So it's up to you with your big mouths about what you're going to do for the JFK assassination. This is what we're doing. So I urge you to come to Dallas. And they've got a new mayor in Dallas who's not a new mayor, but the old mayor has switched political parties from Democrat to Republican. So things are going on, folks. And if you want to subscribe to the channel and get us to 100,000, I'd like to get there before we go to Dallas.
It would be nice.
It would be nice to have the 100 as we enter the city of Dallas for the 60th anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. That would be great, folks.
It would be. And even better, we could do it a little sooner. We have our 2-year anniversary of the channel coming up in October.
What?
So it would be a very cool way to celebrate if we happen to be hitting 100,000 on our 2-year anniversary.
Oh, that would be great.
Definitely. So a couple more super chats here. Todd Gavin, super sticker. Thank you very much. Michael Cadell, please describe all the bad things during the same times. Maybe you were a kid. We know Hunley was.
Please describe the bad things during the same times.
I'm very confused by all of that, but
the bad thing. Well, I described the bombings. Does that help?
I guess. Oh, this one's saying, Mark, you got to get legs to flip. He's still on the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen Legs in a long time, but he might be right.
Probably.
Legs he marches to his own drummer, Legs. So,
well, marches with a name like Legs. I hope he does march.
Yeah.
But on that note, let me check one more time for a quick sweep. Anything came through on locals? Guilty as Jumbo, Alex. Now I could show this to my uniformed workmate to think Weather Underground is an app. Thanks for clearing up the air.
That's there. It is an app.
There is an app. No. There's a legitimate business called Weather Underground.
Right.
Dumbest name choice ever, but they're bought up by the Weather Channel. It is a legitimate app. Has nothing to do with anything here. It's actually pretty good quality. My wife uses it
for the weather. You mean
for actual weather? Yes.
Right.
It's and then entry required. I remember being in school in New York City, and I used to joke about all the different terror group acronyms and how I could not keep them straight.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, there are quite a few of them, and there's a long list of bombings and actions that each of them did.
For sure. So, folks, next up we have Friday, Freeform Friday, and I really hope you buy some tickets.
Oh,
I understand
yeah.
if you can't make it, get a virtual ticket, share it away too. I mean,
you got 2 months. You got
there.
2 months to get it together, folks. I mean, if you can't get it together for this, all your bitching and moaning and everything else is for naught. You know,
and let's blow it up. Come on, share it out. Share it to a friend. Let's sell it out. It'll be cool.
Let's sell this out.
America's Untold Stories.
We're going to
take over.
We're going to have a good time down there with this. This will be like officially like our second meetup, Eric. You know, after Montgomery, after Montgomery, which went pretty well. And, you know, there's going to be an MC, there's going to be a buffet dinner. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. This is the JFK Lancer Conference is one of the oldest conferences in Dallas, by the way. It's run by Deborah Conway and has the most legit JFK researchers attached to it.
Yeah, I'm totally looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So until then, though, we'll see everybody Freeform Friday.
That's it.